Tolkien's world, Middle-earth. It's captivating. And we know you're right there with us, eager to explore more. So today, we're diving into a chapter that's often overshadowed, but critically important. Numenor.
It's not just another name on the map.
Definitely not.
And Numenor represents a whole civilization.
Its rise and fall, the echoes.
They're felt throughout Tolkien's entire legendarium. It's a place, honestly, full of paradoxes.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Where the very things that make Numenor great, those inherent gifts, they also sow the seeds of its ultimate downfall. Tolkien was a master, weaving these grand narratives. And with Numenor, it's more than just like battles and epic sagas.
Right.
It's about choices, consequences, the very allure of power. It's deeply human.
Even in this world of, elves, dwarves?
Exactly.
We're talking the Fall of Numenor, Tolkien's notes, their cultures, lifespans.
All of it.
It's like piecing together this massive puzzle, each detail giving us a clearer picture of why Numenor matters.
And it all begins, really, with a gift. Numenor wasn't some conquered land. It was granted, bestowed upon the Edain.
The Edain, those were, remind me.
Men, but not just any men. Those who stood with the elves in the very first battles against Morgoth, the first Dark Lord.
Okay, right. Fighting alongside the elves. Big deal.
Huge. Imagine it. This island, rising from the sea, shaped like a star.
Wait, hold up. A star-shaped island.
Bathed in the light of the two trees. This was their reward. A paradise.
Tolkien and his visuals, but it's more than just a cool shape, right? There's always meaning behind it.
Always. The shape, the geography.
Yeah.
Think about regions like Forestar.
Where exactly?
Rugged highlands, home to these people known for, their toughness, resilience. It speaks to the Numenorian spirit. Shaped by both, I think, the harsh seas and that unyielding stone.
It's like their environment is shaping their character. And then, smack dab in the middle of it all, the Meneltarmer.
The Meneltarmer.
This towering mountain, but not just any mountain. This is the sacred place, right?
They're Mount Olympus, if you will.
Yeah.
A site of pilgrimage. Imagine, every year, the Numenorians, they descend this mountain for these incredible prayer ceremonies. And they're connecting with the divine. Take the Erukermi ceremony, this autumn ritual, deeply spiritual. A time for gratitude, reflection. It wasn't just a harvest festival, though there's an element of that.
Deeper, yeah.
It was woven into their very being. Shows us their values, their reverence for the land, for the gifts they were given.
You've got this image of them, deeply spiritual, connected to their past.
Right.
And yet so different from the typical picture of, medieval life. Tolkien describes them as master craftspeople. Horses weren't just tools.
Companion.
And marriage. Forget about rushing to the altar.
Numenorian women, many of them, they'd wait decades, 40, sometimes older, before even considering marriage.
Carrie Cates, that's choosing a partner after a lifetime of experiences for most people.
They had time on their side, true. Lifespans far exceeding those of ordinary men.
A gift, you'd think, this long life. But were there any downsides?
Well, that's the thing about gifts. Sometimes there's a catch. The Numenorians, long-lived as they were still mortal. And that awareness, it lingered, especially as their ambitions grew.
This is where it starts to get really interesting. That tension between their blessings and, I guess, what they lacked.
Exactly. It's the cracks beginning to show. The seeds of discontent, as they say.
Yeah.
And they would have consequences. They wanted it all, you see.
It's like that saying, right? Be careful what you wish for.
Because they had so much. But it's what they didn't have that consumed them.
Which was?
Immortality. Like the elves possessed. That envy, it took root and festered.
And that's where their seafaring skills, all that exploration, that plays a part, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Because we're not talking about simple voyages here. These were master shipbuilders.
The finest.
Charting unknown waters, establishing trade routes, and Dunia, their greatest port, it was bustling.
A testament to their skill.
But maybe also a sign of, their ambition getting the better of them.
There's that duality, isn't there? What starts as wonder, a thirst for knowledge, it becomes intertwined with this desire for more, to transcend their limits. Even long life wasn't enough.
And waiting in the wings, or rather, the shadows of Middle-earth, Sauron,
of course,
the former servant of Morgoth, just waiting to exploit those very desires.
He was a master of it.
So you've got the Numenorians at this point, powerful but wanting more, and Sauron, the ultimate manipulator. What could go wrong?
It's the recipe for disaster, frankly.
Yeah.
And it all ties back to that ancient decree, The ban on sailing west.
Right. The Valar, forbidding them from seeking the Undying Lands. Talk about forbidden fruit. It's like human nature 101. Tell someone they can't have something.
And it becomes the only thing they want.
Exactly. And Sauron, he was all too happy to whisper in their ears, wasn't he?
Oh, with his silver tongue indeed.
Oh.
Planting seeds of doubt about the Valar, fanning those flames of resentment, convincing them that they were being denied what was rightfully theirs.
And that's where we see that division start to form within Numenor, right?
Yep.
The faithful versus the king's men.
A schism.
Loyalists versus those tempted by Sauron's promises.
And it went beyond just politics. This was reflected in their culture, their very language. The king's men, they abandoned the elven tongues.
Really?
Embrace Adunaic as their own, a symbol of their rejection of the Valar and their one-time allies.
It's like Tolkien's showing us how these internal battles can be just as destructive, if not more so, than any external threat.
Absolutely.
And speaking of destructive, we can't forget about the Nazgul, right? Those ring wraiths. They emerge around this time, don't they?
They do. Sauron, ever the strategist, he ensnared 3 Númenórean lords with the 9 rings of power, twisted them into those terrifying figures
It's a reminder, isn't it?
of the price of ambition.
And the insidious nature of Sauron's power. But it's not just, these large-scale events. Tolkien gives us this very personal story, too. Aldarion and Arendis.
Oh, yes.
It almost feels like a microcosm of Numenor itself.
How so?
Well, you've got Aldarion, the Sea King, driven by his need to explore, and then there's Arendis.
Longing for home, for stability.
She represents that part of Numenor that was still connected to the land, I think.
To the original gifts.
Right. But even she couldn't escape the change that was happening. Tolkien writes about how even the birds, the elven birds that used to fill her gardens, they left.
It's a poignant detail.
This symbol of the broken bond between Numenor and the elves.
Indeed.
Things really take a turn, though, with Ar-Pharazôn. He's gotta be one of the most powerful kings Numenor ever had, wouldn't you say?
Oh, undoubtedly.
Skilled ruler, great warrior,
Is.
consumed by pride, this desire to surpass even his own ancestors. He actually challenged Sauron directly, right?
He did. Sailed to Middle-earth with an army so massive that Sauron, he surrendered without a fight.
You'd think that would be the time to maybe, take a step back and enjoy the victory.
One would hope.
But that's not Ar-Pharazôn, is it?
He'd already fallen prey to those same whispers that undid his predecessors.
And what's even wilder, instead of, crushing Sauron, he brings him back to Numenor as a prisoner.
A fatal mistake.
Okay, so this is where I can't even. Sauron, a prisoner. He becomes the king's advisor.
It seems unfathomable.
Ah,
But that was Sauron's plan all along.
so cunning.
He played the role perfectly. The penitent captive. All the while planting those seeds of dissent, exploiting Ar-Pharazôn's pride.
Suggesting what?
That the Valar were holding Numenor back, that true immortality, dominion over all. It was theirs for the taking.
So instead of being satisfied with their victory, Ar-Pharazôn gets talked into waging war on the very beings who gifted them their island paradise in the first place.
The height of arrogance.
What happened? Did they actually reach the Undying Lands?
This is where Tolkien's narrative takes its most dramatic turn. As Ar-Pharazôn's fleet, the grandest the world had ever seen, neared the shores of Valinor, the Valar intervened.
They actually stepped in.
They appealed to Ilúvatar himself, the supreme being.
Wow. So they basically said, this is above our pay grade. Someone call corporate.
Essentially. And the response. Swift and absolute. The world was reshaped. Seas churned. Mountains crumbled. And Numenor, swallowed beneath the waves.
Big ink.
Gone. His fleet, his armies, all those who had sided with Sauron, perished.
A whole civilization gone in an instant.
A cautionary tale for the ages.
But what about those who remained faithful? The faithful, I think they were called. Surely not everyone followed Ar-Pharazôn into this madness.
You're right, not all were swayed. The faithful, they saw the corruption that had gripped their people. They sensed the coming doom.
Led by Elendil, he's important, right?
Elendil and his sons, Isildur and Anarion. They boarded 9 ships, carrying with them a precious cargo, a seedling of the White Tree.
A symbol of what was lost.
And the hope for a new beginning. They sailed east, fleeing the destruction.
So as Numenor sank, a part of it lived on.
In those 9 ships, yes.
And they eventually found their way to Middle-earth.
They did, and their descendants. Well, they would go on to found Gondor and Arnor. But that is a story for another time. Numenor. A civilization brought down by, its own ambition. It's a powerful story. But why should we care?
It's a good question. Why should we care?
Right. Exactly. It happened thousands of years before what Frodo even puts on the ring.
But that's the thing about Tolkien. As fantastical as his world is, these stories,
Yeah.
they resonate, don't they, with these timeless truths, Numenor's fall. It wasn't just some isolated event. It sent ripples through history, impacted everything.
Even the events of the Lord of the Rings.
Even those, yes, think about those Palantiri, for example,
Seeing stones.
given to the Numenorians by the elves. A few of them, they survived the downfall.
And showed up, at some pretty critical moments later on?
Tools of communication, yes, but also in the wrong hands. Tools of manipulation.
It's like these echoes of the past, just when you think they're gone.
Lingering. A reminder of Numenor's legacy.
Right. And speaking of legacies,
Yeah.
Gondor and Arnor,
Yes.
the kingdoms founded by those who escaped.
The faithful.
They weren't starting from nothing, though, were they? Oh, they carried so much with them. The strength, the resilience of their ancestors. But also, their weaknesses.
It's like history repeating itself.
Gondor, especially. Think about Minas Anor, their architecture, their shipbuilding prowess, even their internal power struggles, echoes of Numenor.
Tolkien seems to be saying something there, like, yeah, they achieved incredible things, but that past, it casts a long shadow, doesn't it?
Always. And we can't forget, of course, the most significant legacy of all.
Which is?
The Rings of Power, Sauron's deception, the forging of the One Ring. It all happened against this backdrop of Numenor's rise and fall.
It's tempting to see the Second Age as just like setting the stage for the Lord of the Rings, but really, Numenor.
It's a turning point.
Exactly. It changes everything.
It shifted the balance, weakened the Free Peoples, gave Sauron the opening he needed.
It makes you wonder, what if things had gone differently?
What if?
The ultimate question.
If Numenor had survived,
Mm-hmm.
would Sauron have even been able to create the One Ring? Would Middle-earth be recognizable to us at all? We can only speculate. But that's the power of these stories, isn't it? They make us think.
Even though Numenor is gone, there's still so much we can learn from it.
Their story is our story. A reminder that even the most advanced, the most powerful civilizations, they're not immune to the dangers of pride, of unchecked ambition, of losing sight of what truly matters.
It's a cautionary tale. But there's also hope there, isn't there, in the resilience of the faithful and those who refuse to give in to despair.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Numenor, I'm left with this sense of gratitude, really, for Tolkien's gift of storytelling and a renewed appreciation for the enduring power of his message. It's a message that transcends the pages, that speaks to something deep within us, a reminder to choose wisely, to hold on to hope, and to remember that even in the face of darkness, even when civilizations crumble, there's always the possibility for a new beginning. Thanks for joining us on this journey through Middle-earth. Until next time, may your own paths be filled with the light of the two trees.